Okay, welcome everybody out tonight. And last week we talked about, we had a little update on the fourth turning. Anybody, I guess we've had more updates on the fourth turning since last week, but consider all that's happened this last week. And we talked about air drafting pairs. And no, I don't have another video of the results of that yet. Probably be a month or two before that's available. But tonight, before we go into the market review and current events, I wanted to play a little clip from Jim Richards' interview. And I think I can just, I wonder if I just click on this, if it will come up that way. And I'll still be able to see it. Just thinking about it. Stop sharing. Share. Okay. Let's play the introduction.
Trump had been killed and he came within millimeters of being killed. That's just a fact. It could have set off something like a civil war. We're probably already in a civil war, Julia. But just to be clear, I think that I don't condone it whatsoever. But as an analyst, I would say you can't rule that out.
Anyway, we're not going to continue on that line, but this goes for over an hour, and he talks about that and a lot of political stuff that we're not going to go to, but that's the way he opens up, that we're probably in a civil war and we're probably in a recession. So I think about 48 minutes over here, he gives his view of what we might personally should be thinking about doing if that's the case financially. So we'll pick up there and play about 10 minutes worth and then go back over and review the markets.
Plan backed up by the Heritage Foundation report as a reincarnation of the Alexander Hamilton, Henry Clay American plan, which was very, very successful. So if your viewers want to know, where do I invest? I say the U.S. is going to be, other than India, but the U.S. is going to be one of the most attractive investment venues. We all know the famous story. Henry Ford gave his workers a $5 raise once upon a time, and people are like, hey, why did you give the workers more money? You didn't have to do that. He goes, I gave more money so they can buy my cars. In other words, what good does it do you to be selling stuff in the U.S. if people can't afford it? So this is a big win for the U.S. But if people want to know the playbook, it's Navarro's book, the Heritage Foundation, and the original American plan.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I am really interested. Let me ask you this. Our current state of the economy, the path that we are on right now, also maybe I'm sure you have a take too on just the rising debt deficits here in the US. Can you kind of talk about the current path that we're on? And do you think in the event that the base case here is a Trump victory, a Navarro plan as you outlined, can we avoid recession? Do you think we're on path for a recession currently? And do you think that we may avoid one? Just, I'm a bit curious, like how you kind of contrast the two different economies or ways of handling the economies.
We're definitely on a path for a recession. We may already be in one. As you know, the National Bureau of Economic Research in Cambridge, Massachusetts, they're they call balls and strikes. That's the group. It's a private group. They're the ones who decide when did a recession start, when was it over, et cetera. So no one has called an official recession, but they're usually like 9 months to a year after the fact. Like when the National Bureau of Economic Research says, oh, the recession started a year ago. Like, well, thanks a lot. It's almost over. But thanks for telling us. So we may actually be in a recession right now, but if we're not, we could very well be headed for one. And there are lots of technical indicators. I don't want to get too down in the weeds, but for the past 2 years, yield curves, treasury yield curves, have been mostly inverted, meaning a normal yield curve is upward sloping. So shorter maturities have lower interest rates than longer maturities. If I'm going to lend you money for a month, I want a certain interest rate. But if I'm going to lend you money for 10 years, I might say, hey, Julia, a lot could happen. I'm going to charge you a higher interest rate. That's a normal yield curve. When the yield curve is inverted, the long-term rate is lower than the short-term rate. Now, that makes no sense in terms of risk, but it makes a lot of sense if you expect a recession. Because if you take a 4.5% coupon, 4.5% yield to maturity on a 10-year treasury note, and interest rates drop to 2%, you had a huge capital gain. Like that 4.5% coupon is going to look really good in a world of 2% interest rates. So investors, and this is the big money, sovereign funds, pension funds, et cetera, endowments, they'll say, yeah, I'll take that rate. It's lower than the overnight rate is like 5.5%, and the 10-year note was 4.5%. So why would you take a lower rate on a much longer maturity? The answer is that overnight rate is an overnight rate. It could change quickly, and I'm only locked it in for a month or 6 months or whatever. But that 4.5% rate could look really sweet in a world of sub 2% interest rates. So that's a signal that a recession is coming, because that's why you would take the lower rate, because in a world of lower rates, interest rates go way down. Now, what's happened literally just in the last couple of weeks is the yield curves are starting to uninvert. That is and it's not because the longer term rates are going up. They're not. It's because the short term rates are dropping really fast. So the yield curve is starting to assume a more normal upward sloping curve. What does that mean? That means we're in the recession. That means that, inflation is not a concern at all. And rates are trending down. Car sales are dropping. Housing is unaffordable. The unemployment report's kind of a joke. And what I mean by that is, as you know, they have two reports, the employer survey and the household survey. One, you call employers and say, how many people did you hire or fire? The other ones you call household and say, did you get a job or lose a job? In theory, they should be the same. Of course, they never are, because the survey is never 100%, but they should be close. They're not close. They've diverged to a significant extent. The employer survey is showing much higher job creation, whereas the household survey in some recent months has shown huge job losses. So one of them's wrong. Which one? Well, history shows that the household survey is usually more accurate, particularly at turning points in the economy. So what we should expect to see, those employment report numbers, are job creation is going to drop very sharply. It's going to go into job losses sooner than later. So the combination of yield curves uninverting, and they were saying, hey, you've had your warning, too bad, now it's here. And the employment report, at least some of them showing job losses, and the other one showing job gains likely to turn around quickly, and some of the other metrics I mentioned, we could very well be in a recession. I think, Julia, people focus on the politics and the Fed and all that. Yeah, and I do too, and you do have to pay attention to it. But the economy is bigger than all that. I mean, the idea that Jay Powell can snap his fingers and cut interest rates and it's all good is just not true. The idea that the presidential candidate can single-handedly turn the economy around is not true. Over time, a couple of years of policy and tax cuts and less regulation and tariffs, and you can over time, but not in a matter of weeks or months. And so my expectation is we're in a recession, probably in a recession now. If not, we will be soon. There is no such thing as a soft landing. Landings are always hard. And there's a lot of reason to think that the stock, as far as the stock market's concerned, I'm more of a global macro analyst, and I focus a little more on bonds and foreign exchange and derivatives and so forth. But here's what I know about the stock market. People say you can't spot a bubble. That's nonsense. Nothing is easier than spotting a bubble. Just look at charts. Look at the Nikkei in 1989. Look at the NASDAQ in late 1999. Look at housing in 2007. Every one of them is a bubble, and it's easy to spot. What's difficult is knowing when the bubble is going to burst. And it's just because you can see the bubble, I wouldn't short it, because you can lose a lot of money being right, meaning it could just keep going for a while, but it will burst. There's what people may not realize, because most people these days, they buy stock indices, Vanguard, S&P 500 stock index, buy it, sleep well at night, just keeps going up. But 85% of the stocks in the S&P 500 are down for the year. 100% of the gains in the index are due to like 5 companies. No, sorry, not 100%. Very high percentage, over 50% of the gains are due to 4 or 5 companies. And we know what they are. It's, it's Microsoft, NVIDIA, Amazon, Apple, and a couple others. So the S&P 500 is cap weighted, which means that the bigger you are as a stock, the more influence you have on the index. So the index is going up. People buy the index. The index manager, the fund manager, what do they have to buy? They have to buy NVIDIA, Microsoft, and the companies we mentioned, Tesla and a few others. So what does that do? It makes them go up higher. So this is a recursive function, or feedback loop, if you want to call it that. It's creating a bubble. I don't know when it will break. That's very difficult to predict, but I know that it will break. And when it does, it'll break really fast and hard because of the concentration risk. So get ready. I mean, my view would be, I'm not saying, sell all your stocks and run for the woods. I would say I would increase my allocations to cash. I would have a 10% allocation to gold. Gold's right now today is near an all-time high. Just a few bucks away from an all-time high. I'd lighten up on equities. If I kept equities, I would probably favor the energy sector, because drill, baby, drill. I mean, Trump's going to really turn the energy sector loose. Defense contractors, because we're not going to win the war in Ukraine. That's the loss. The Russians are going to win. But one thing we've learned is that our weapons don't work. So they're going to need some new ones and more R&D. So there are things to do in the stock market, but I would lighten up on stocks. Look by, kind of 5 year season to taste, maybe 2-year, 5-year, 10-year treasury notes, because interest rates are going to drop really quickly. Increase your cash allocation so you can go shopping after the crash. Save a 10% slice of gold.
Yeah. Well, we have exactly 2 minutes left. And Jim, I have to say, I love having you on. I love listening to you. I love learning from you. And I know the audience does too. And I want to get you on more often. If you're ever open up to it, we would love to get you on every couple of months if you're open to it. But I want to give you the floor now, last 90 seconds here, to leave the audience with some parting thoughts, anything that you'd like them to think about, and also anything that you'd like to plug. I know you have a book coming out, so folks definitely go order that.
Yeah, my new book is called Money GBT, AI and the Threat to the Economy and National Security. So obviously it's about AI, but I stay in my lanes, which are, capital markets and national security. I think AI is powerful and will do some wonderful things. I don't question that, but there are enormous dangers that are being overlooked. I've spoken to the top experts in the field, did a ton of research on this, and AI could actually combine with human nature. I'm not saying that AI is not going to work. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying it's going to work exactly as it's designed to do, but it ignores aspects of human nature. So,
Okay, we're going to stop there. He's going to go pretty dark at the end, but so back over here. Okay, so can you see the agenda now?
Yes.
Okay. So the markets today were mostly down at the end of the day. They were all over the place during the day, but lots of earnings after the market closed. So not sure, I didn't follow up after that, but like Tesla had earnings today, and I think Amazon and several of the big hot stocks had earnings today. Visa had earnings. So they were all over the place the last time I looked at them at 4:30ish. But anyway, it was a very very volatile day. But wanted to kind of go through some of the things that he recommended, and of course gold was, he was recommending 10% gold. Gold was up marginally today at 2409, which is still pretty high, and you know, is gold in a bubble by his definition? He's saying buy it, but you know, it's at all-time high. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure where it's going next, whether it's going to 5,000 or back to 2,000, but everything else going on. But goldbacks, I think are still around the 488 level. So I would say everybody ought to have, if they should have 10% gold, maybe maybe 2% of that 10% should be goldbacks. Silver was down a few pennies today at 29.19, so it has broken below $30, but the gold silver ratio says buy silver at 83-1. I think silver is probably a little riskier, because if the economy crashes, you know, silver is an industrial metal as well as a monetary metal, so it will probably dump some. But then we get to his other suggestion about buying treasuries and locking in these high rates. So that would be the tilts and zeros, which were both fractionally just a little down today. But so they're going to kind of hold off, waiting on anticipation of the Fed rate cuts, which will make the principal on tilt and zeros go up substantially if rates really did come back down to 2%. So we'll have to see on that. But historically, you know, this would be the safe play to go into tilt and zeros. Wheat was down 6 cents today, still holding above $6. Looks like it put in another bottom at $5, but can't tell for sure. Either way, it's mighty cheap. DBA, which is Agricultural Commodities Fund, was absolutely flat today at 24.27, and the DBC, which is more precious metals and energy based, was down a few cents at 22.43. The big star of the day, which he also recommended, was the industrial military complex. Everything that I follow in there was up today substantially. Lockheed was up $25. I think that was on earnings. NOC was up, Raytheon was up, GE was up $9, even Boeing was up $7. So every one of them that I follow was up substantially. And so world peace, not yet. But this is a particular one. If you're going to stay in the stock market, I mean, even if the general market goes down, I think these guys will hold up pretty well. So we've got too many wars in too many places, and like he said, we've got to upgrade our weapons considerably. It looks like, compete with Russia and China. So UNG was down, which is natural gas. Wasn't down much, but 1486. The futures are at 216, and all the corresponding stocks that I follow to go along with that were all down. And so between natural gas and oil, something has to give here, because oil is down today also, but you can buy way more energy barrel equivalent in natural gas than you can in oil right now. So either oil's got to come down or natural gas has got to go up, because that should over the long term balance out. So I've been shorting oil, thinking that that's the way it's going to happen, and so far it's been good. It was down below $77 today, so you know, that dropping would tend to indicate a recession also. Bitcoin was down a little bit today to 65,000. I can't figure out, looking at the chart, which way that thing's going to go, but I think it's still going to be dependent on the Nasdaq. I think if the Nasdaq was to crash, I think Bitcoin would follow, or vice versa. But state of Wisconsin pension plan, that's kind of old news. But the new news is 8 new ETFs started trading today for Ethereum, and they opened a little down today. So Ethereum in general itself was down to 34.61, but fairly flat, but just trending down a little bit. So, but these 8 new ETFs should produce more demand for Ethereum. So probably another dollar cost averaging idea. So back to war news. War on fossil fuels, nothing much new there, other than if Trump was to get elected, what Rickard said, the preference of Trump for drilling everything we could should be good for the oil and gas companies, but of course could make prices go down too. So war in the Middle East, war on the middle class, war on cash, still going on. I was amazed. I was in Arkansas this last week in a little hometown restaurant, and they had a sign up that come Monday they would have a terminal so they could take credit and debit cards. So a place that still has been cash or they'll take local checks. Weren't able to do that just yet, so that was kind of interesting. Usually you see it the other way around. Fed now is up and running, and supposed to be some forced implementation of that after the election. That's the rumor anyway. War on food still going strong. War on gardens. War on meat. War on cancer has surrendered. Seasonal information. Time to order any trees that you might want to plant this fall. Think about propagation of trees and shrubs and herbs and things that can be started with soft or semi-hard cuttings. Like we saw last week with the pear tree. Most things can be started that way. The neat thing about doing it this time of year is you can see what kind of fruit that you're going to get. But anybody's interested, I've got plenty of water sprouts on my pear trees that, they're just going to have to be pruned off early next spring anyway. And that'd be a good place to start new trees if you want to try that out. So it's about time to plant fall garden, believe it or not. We can get enough rain to get some seeds up. Start harvesting, plan your harvest, what you're going to do with it. We're going to talk about that a little bit in the video tonight. Bees need attention in this what's been hot, dry weather. Might want to order seeds for next year when they go on sale. Of course, pounding on potassium iodine in this crazy world. Any progress anybody would like to report on? Besides staying under the air conditioner?
Well, my sweet potato patch is looking amazing. I'm wondering when it's time to harvest some of my potatoes. Some of them started looking a little brown on the leaves, but I'm wondering if that's because they were getting underwatered. They were on the edge of the garden. I'm not sure. But
You think they weren't getting enough water, or?
that's what I'm wondering, because they were
Okay.
on the edge of the garden. I don't know if anybody's. I don't remember what what the time to harvest is for those, but
Well, it's generally like 120 days from the time you set them out, but
okay.
it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to go longer generally.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, in any case, I was gonna send you a picture of my sweet potatoes. It's they've taken over all the area I've let them, so
good.
they look great.
It's kind of interesting because when again when I was in Arkansas, the local paper there for the county publishes a section on what they printed 50 years ago and what was news 90 years ago. And in the 90 years ago, my grandpa Timely Apple was in there, and it said that he will have sweet potatoes available in Danville this Saturday, this coming Saturday. And thought that was interesting. And I questioned it because I thought it was too early for him to have sweet potatoes. So,
Well, you carried that torch at least anyway.
yeah, but I just thought it was kind of early. So, because they're supposedly doing it, the same week 90 years ago. Anyway,
But they would have set out their slips earlier because we're just a little north of there, right?
well, yeah, but up on the mountain, probably not.
Was he up on Mount Magazine?
Oh, excuse me. No, he was not. You're right.
That was Uncle Will, right?
Yeah, I always think of him being the peddler of many vegetables. Yeah, so maybe not. Maybe he would have made it. And he did all kinds of things of uh kolaches and stuff to cover things up and keep it from frosting. And so he probably did get an earlier crop than anybody else. So anyway, here's the same picture from last week, but that was our first major harvest of tomatoes and bitter melon vine and red noodle beans. Things are starting to come in, and I'm always fascinated by the infrastructure from homesteads from way back. And this was like circa 1880s probably. This was the well at my great grandmother's place, which I hadn't discovered before, but they're building the third or fourth house on this site right now, and so they've cleaned up around there quite a bit. And this well was rocked in, just kind of like you see on the top there, all the way down to as far as I could see at water level, which was about 15 foot down. And that was apparently the original well, hand dug well there. And they probably in that area hit these layers of sandstone, which were generally about 4 inches thick around there. And then as they dug through them, they used that to support the walls up. So it was interesting. And then the next thing, which wasn't that old because they used cement, I expect this was probably early 1900s. This was their root cellar / storm cellar. And they had four of these. I assume they put a wooden plug in these vent holes probably. And had a door down here, there were still canning jars down there with food in it. It's not in the family anymore, but real nice family that lives there, and the son's building a house, like probably 30 yards from this cellar and 15 yards from that hand dug well. That was the remaining infrastructure from the site that's had at least 3 houses on it I know of. So the video tonight is also a timely one, because everybody seems to be, at least where I just came from in Arkansas, everybody was overrun with tomatoes. It's kind of like we talk about zucchinis. Don't leave your car unlocked.
Tell them about Belinda.
And my cousin's wife, we were going to have a little get together while me and my sister was there, family reunion, and we asked her if she'd be interested in having it in her house, and she said, "No, I can't have it in my house. I've got 17 5-gallon buckets in my kitchen full of tomatoes and a whole bunch more in jars on the counters." So
Somebody's got a tomato problem.
yeah, and
It's a severe addiction.
yeah, she's the canner for the whole, the 3 generations following her, because she has six grandkids and 6 great grandkids. But she's one person that's still going crazy on the canning. She said she had cut back this year. She only planted 200 tomato plants instead of a regular 300 tomato plants.
She's an overachiever.
That video. This is all about fermenting your tomatoes, salsa in particular, but a whole lot of other things are possible instead of, and what the advantages of that are over water bath canning or pressure canning.
Want to have more energy? How many people are like suffering digestive issues? How many people are fatigued and tired all the time? How many people want to take back your health? I do. I am all about it. So I want you guys today, we are going to take back our health, all of us together. This is the day. If you guys are he and hawing and deciding, oh, I'm going to start tomorrow, today is the day. You're going to take back your health. You're going to become your own health care provider, and you're going to start taking care of yourself today. It's taken many of us years to get in the condition that we're in. A lot of us have sedentary lifestyles. You really don't have any stamina or energy. You're tired all the time. You're drinking coffee or caffeinated drinks to keep you going and going and going. So what I want to do, and my job here, because this is my passion, is to get people to start making these little subtle changes in their life by changing what they eat, adding a little movement to your life, getting out in the sun, walking in nature. Certain things like this can totally change your life. So this is a simple recipe that I want to show you guys that you can start taking back your health today. And that is, we're going to do a lacto-fermented salsa. Now, there's so many versions of this. I mean, I'm going to use whatever's in my garden. I have a lot of things that are slowing down in my garden. I have a lot of things that I have a lot of. So I'm just gonna use in this salsa what I have, and that's what you guys need to do. Whatever you have, that's what you can use. So all you're gonna need for this lacto-fermented salsa is tomatoes. If you wanna put some peppers, go ahead and put some peppers. These are regular like green peppers. And I'm gonna put some jalapenos in there. If you don't want any spice, you don't have to put jalapenos in it. And I'm gonna put some onion, and that is it. Because right now, my cilantro is done. I don't have any cilantro, and I'm just starting again to start a little bit more parsley, so I don't have a lot of parsley to put in it. Normally I'd put parsley or cilantro. It's not gonna taste any bad, so let's try whatever you got. So that's what I have. Jalapenos, tomatoes, onions, and peppers. Before we start, I want to talk about the word lacto fermentation because a lot of people get confused about what it means. So lacto, if you hear it, you think about dairy, but it doesn't have anything to do with dairy. It's lactic acid. So we're going to culture the lactic acid because on each of these vegetables that you're going to use, I have, all these little things here. It has this like diverse array of microorganisms all over it. So it's like this happy family of bacteria. And so what's going to happen is we're going to turn that lactic acid into kind of a natural preservative where it's going to preserve it from spoiling. Because if you leave things out, of course, it's going to rot. But we're going to put it in the perfect environment where we're going to keep it where this lactic acid will thrive inside of it and that it will help preserve it from spoiling for many months. So basically, all you're going to need is something to chop it up with, and the thing that's going to preserve it to help them from spoiling is salt. So I like to use the Redmond salt, the unrefined salt, because it has a wonderful flavor and has over 60 trace minerals that your human body needs, and we all are lacking in our trace minerals. So that's why I like to use the Redmond salt. So you can go to awkwardwithdougandstacy.com and you can get it at a discount, go to the shop tab. So all you're gonna do is get your tomatoes. Now for some of you guys, if you don't have like a blender or like a food processor, I'm going to use a hand chopper here. You can just dice it yourself by hand if you want a chunkier salsa, that'll work too. That's a great thing about fermenting. And a lot of you guys might already know that I prefer to ferment because when you ferment, you're going to keep all the vitamins in there. I'm not heating up and destroying any of the vitamins and enzymes from it. Basically, when you are fermenting, you're going to be enhancing it. So that's why I prefer to do it this way. And it gives it a really nice, tangy flavor. It kind of changes the flavor profile a little bit. And I enjoy it. It kind of makes your foods taste great. All right, I'm going to put some peppers in there. This year, it was weird. We had a lot of rain early in the season, and then all of a sudden, we didn't get any. And you guys know what happens when your poor peppers don't get a lot of rain. They're not really juicy, so our peppers aren't the best. But my salsa, that's a good thing. When you mix it in salsa, you really can't tell. So I'm going to put my peppers in there, and then I'll put some onions in there. Now onions are a really high in quercetin, and it's like a super antioxidant that fights against, damages. You have free radicals, all the bad stuff coming in your body that can kind of mess up your body. So when you eat these foods that are rich in certain antioxidants, that'll help counteract that and fight it. So that's why it's so important. These wonderful fruits and vegetables that we're eating, especially the vegetables, they are loaded with all these antioxidants that you need to help prevent a lot of the stuff that's occurring in our world today. And when you make them into a salsa, it's amazing. As well as like a tomato, guys, they come in different colors, varieties, and all that. Here's a pink one. So these tomatoes, the different colors, they all have different vitamins and minerals and things that you get more of. And when you look at a tomato, it's really high in vitamin C. And our human body cannot produce vitamin C on its own. We need to get it from other sources. So this is a great way to get vitamin C. As well as, did you guys know there's calcium in tomatoes too? So good for your bones. I'm going to put a little bit of jalapeno in there, not a lot. And this one I'll do half the jalapeno in my first batch. To help preserve this ferment is to put some salt in there. So this is going to make about 2 pints or so. So I'm going to put 2 heaping teaspoons in this, all right? Now, a lot of you guys, if you've been fermenting, you can like jumpstart your ferment by adding some juice from another ferment. Honestly, I like when it just naturally occurs and it goes through the process, kind of like wild fermentation, just with the salt. So that's all I'm going to do today. It's just the salt and then the vegetables that you're going to use. And then all you're going to do is put a little elbow grease into it. And I'm just gonna stir it up. Now I know a lot of you guys are gonna say, oh, you can put lime in there, you can put lemon in there. I don't have any limes or lemons today. I normally put a lime in this. You can put cumin in there. I make some with cumin. I make some extra spicy. You guys just do whatever you like. It's all gonna work out. I'm not measuring. You guys use what you have. If you have a salsa that has more peppers, because that's what you have more of, then have a salsa with more peppers. I guess last week I had gotten a pineapple and I had extra pineapple, so all I did to this same recipe, I added some pineapple to it, and it's amazing. If you're using a food processor or the hand chopper like I'm doing it, you don't want to blend it up like in a blender because it will get very, very bubbly. Don't ask me how I know. So you just want to kind of dice it up a little bit so you get the salt mixed up in there and everything is all chopped up really good. There. All right, here's the taste test. So good. Now here's the thing. Maybe some of you guys don't want it for a minute. There you go, you have a homemade salsa. But what I'm gonna do next only is gonna take about 2 days. We're gonna let it sit out. That is it. And then you're gonna have a lacto-fermented salsa that's gonna be filled with probiotic-rich food. And by adding these probiotic-rich foods, it's gonna help with your gut bacteria. Your immune system is affected by the health of your gut. So by adding these foods in there little by little, you don't want to eat like the whole jar, but you know, a tablespoon or two, add it on toppings and things. You know, something simple. This is just food. You're not taking any medicine. It's just something very simple. So all you're going to do now is get a funnel, get your jars that you want. It can go in pints, quarts, whatever you'd like. And I'm going to pour them. So I have about 1 inch or so head space at the top. When I was pouring it, did you notice how all the liquid came out of it? So I'm gonna make sure I have the same amount of liquid in my other jar. So I had a little too much liquid. So I'm gonna give this one back some. My measuring isn't very good today. And then all you're gonna need is your flat and your ring. Because the natural occurring, you know, sugars and starches on the vegetables that you're using are what's going to start the fermentation process to get that lactic acid going to help preserve it. We're going to take this, we're going to put it somewhere out of sunlight, we're going to put it at room temperature, somewhere in your house where you can see it. I always like to put it in front of my sink where I can see it, or up on a shelf that I know it's there. And then if you're bad about knowing, you know, when I'm supposed to change it, on the top of your jar you can use like a Sharpie, and then you can write the date. So today is the 22nd. So what I'll do is I'll write like 8/22, and then I know that in 2 days I need to check this, okay? Generally with this lacto-fermented salsa, it takes 2 to 3 days. It's pretty warm out. This will definitely be done in 2 days. So what's gonna happen after 2 days, I'm gonna go ahead, I might take it a little taste. It should taste kind of effervescent-y, bubbly, tangy, tomato salsa. That's what it should taste like. And then you could go ahead and use it right away. Put it in your refrigerator, put it in cold storage where you will be able to use it for quite a few months. I tell a lot of people, I have a lot of my salsa that will last a year very simply and easily. As it gets older, it'll get a little bit more tangy and more like effervescent, I guess you could say, the older it gets. Still good. And the thing is that I have a lot of people ask me, you know, how do you know if it's good or if it's bad? You know, if you look at it and it's got a bunch of black mold and it smells horrible, then it probably is bad. But if you open it up and it looks good and it smells good, give it a little taste, it should just be fine. Now another thing that you might find, sometimes they get something, it's this white, it's kind of the color of this lid here. It's called chyme yeast. It's kind of this waxy kind of coating. And it's a harmless yeast, and if you do start seeing that form, all you gotta do is get a paper towel and just wipe it off and maybe scoop off that top layer and then mix it up, and it should be fine. But if you keep this in cold storage like a refrigerator, it could last many, many, many months, all right? And then use it for whenever you have taco night or eggs, or if you want chips and salsa. It works out great. And then you're getting a wonderful probiotic-rich food, because we all need to add more good bacteria to our guts, because unfortunately, most of us have more bad bacteria, and that's what causes sickness and disease. So today is the day you guys are gonna start getting your health back start adding some of these wonderful fermented type foods, these ones that are filled with so much nutrition and they're easy to do. I mean, you were with me, you just did it, and I just did a couple jars of salsa. So I'm going to be able to get through and do a ton of these, and look how quickly I can do it. And I know a lot of you guys can your tomato sauces and stuff. It's a lengthy process, I know. And that's wonderful for your different sauces and things, but why not start adding some lacto-fermented tomato sauces or salsas to the mix too, and then that way you could get a good mix of everything. So I want to know from you guys, what are you guys going to do right now to start taking back your health? I want you to leave it in detail in the comments below. Whether it be starting to make some lacto-fermented salsa, or is it going to be going out for walks every day, or you're just going to go sit in nature in a chair barefooted reading a book. What is this, some things that you're going to do to like get some downtime. Take some time for yourself, because remember, if you're not healthy, you can't take care of other people. So you need that good time to self-care yourself, right? As they say, self-care is very important. So leave a comment below on what you guys are going to do, and I can't wait to hear from you. Have a beautiful day. Get out in the garden, try to grow something, and start taking care of you. See you soon.
Okay. I was kind of surprised that she didn't talk about the other lid possibilities, but anyway, Liz, you want to discuss that, or
You mean the rings with the burping nipple in it?
yeah?
We found it online, and it fits on the top just like a flat does with your canning jars. And you just set it on the counter or wherever you're going to have it, and it has a tiny hole. It's just like a baby bottle nipple, the old Playtex ones, when they used to have that plastic bag on the inside. It had a very round nipple on it and then a hole in the middle. It's the same type of design, but it allows the product to be able to burp itself. So you're not likely to have any kind of explosion by having that. Anyway, they're online. You can get them through Amazon, and a half a dozen of those got them in regular and in wide mouth. And we've put it, neither one of us have really had the courage to go ahead, I guess is what I'd call it, to try the fermented radishes that I did. It was intended as a condiment to go with salad or whatever else, and we just haven't used it yet. But I've done that and then stored it in the refrigerator.
Yeah, the only thing that I had a problem with the other product that's out there is these weights, fermenting weights that fit right inside a smallmouth or largemouth jar, because I found with the tomatoes, and especially they would float to the top, and then there would be like a couple of inches of just almost clear tomato juice in the bottom, and so when you were going to use it, you need to stir it up or whatever, but some of it would get above the water if you didn't use a weight or something to hold it down. So but the neat thing about this is you don't have to worry about, okay, do I have 7 quarts of tomatoes or 21 quarts, 14 quarts? I mean, if you got 3 or 4 tomatoes, you can make a quart of this, which is kind of the way the garden works a lot of times. You get 8 or 10 tomatoes a day maybe, or something. So anyway, you can see here's a jar with the radishes in it, and maybe you can
It's got
see
the glass too.
maybe you can see this nipple on top. But anyway, but Yeah, that does
It
have,
has the glass weights in there.
that does have the weight in it. Couple of them floating on top of it, but anyway, keeps everything down submerged. But fermentings, and you can do it with darn near anything, if you do it with grapes, then you call it wine, but it's lots of different things that you can do with it. Most people, everybody knows about sauerkraut and kimchi, but darn near any of your vegetables can be done that way. Okra, for example. Lots of
That's great. I didn't know that.
you
'Cause
know,
I like fermented stuff, so.
you'd like these, but the salsa turns out real good for, you can make spaghetti sauce with it, or as the base for chili, or taco soup, something we make a lot of. So any of those that you would use a special, tomato sauce or spaghetti sauce or taco sauce or whatever. It's kind of an all around thing, and you can vary it, of course. Like she said, if you have cilantro, it makes it more Mexican. If you have parsley, it makes it a little more Italian, and depending on the heat of your peppers and stuff. But and it's very good for your biome.
A number of years ago now, we took garlic and submerged it in honey, and it basically fermented it. And then you can use that for sore throats and things.
So, that's about all I got tonight. Anybody else have anything else they want to discuss before we say goodnight? No. Thanks everybody for coming out, and hope to see you next week again.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.